This is the Horse Radio Network.
This is episode 149 of the Stable Scoop Radio Show. How Good Riders Get Good with Denny Emerson. Please support our sponsors as they make this show possible.
This episode is sponsored by Equestrian Collections at equestriancollections.com. Plus, Uncle Jimmy's. You can find him and all of his cool products at uncle-jimmy's.com. This is Glenn the Geek.
And this is Helena B. And you're listening to the Stable Scoop Radio Show on the Horse Radio Network.
Well, good morning, Helena.
Good morning, Glenn. How are you doing today?
Okay. We have a fun show planned for today. You're going to do a book review, and not only that, you're going to actually get the author on to review it with him.
I'm really excited to talk to the author today. We're going to have Denny Emerson on with us, and he's going to talk about his new book, How Good Riders Get Good, Daily Choices That Lead to Success in Any Equestrian Sport. And this is such a great body of knowledge to have. I was really excited that Denny put this out. And he's, there are a lot of well-known trainers out there, well-known horse people. I think Denny has probably the most well-deserved reputation. It's a good reputation, but he has probably the greatest dose of common sense that I've ever known.
Tell everybody, a little bit about him that don't know him from Adam.
Okay, well, yeah. Denny Emerson is, if you read the book, you'll find out that he's a whole lot more than just an eventer, but that's what he's most well known for. He's been president of the U.S. Eventing Association, the Green Mountain Horse Association. He's based up in Vermont, up here in New England. He's been vice president of the U.S. Equestrian Team. He's in all kinds of halls of fame. He went to Dartmouth College. He's in their athletic hall of fame. And he is by far one of the most influential horsemen of the 20th century. He teaches and coaches gazillions of riders, and all of them have achieved great success. So he is he's our big-time guest today. I mean, he's right up there, for me personally, he's up there with Gina Miles.
Yeah, I know you've been looking forward to this, and I've met Denny before, and he's quite a character. Not only, this will not be a dry interview, everybody. Denny is he is a character. He's fun to talk to, and he's fun to listen to. So I think everybody's really going to enjoy this today.
Yeah, the other thing that he does, and I have to ask him about this after we talk, or somehow I'm going to have to sneak it in, but he owns Tamarack Farm, like I said, up in Vermont. And one of the things that he offers is a camp for adults, an eventing camp for grown-ups.
By the way, I wanted to say, if you follow him on Facebook, just look what's TAM, TAMARACK. It's Tamarack Hill Farm. If you follow him on Facebook, and just search for Tamarack Hill Farm, he really posts some classic vintage pictures from the past.
Oh, I know.
He has some great stuff, and he's always posting on there. For a guy Denny's age, he is out there doing new media to the 10th degree.
He's always been a little bit ahead of the curve, and I think that's what makes him so special. Is he's not one of those old school horse trainers who stayed old school. He's one of those people who actually pushed the horse world forward, because he's a forward-thinking kind of guy. And now, I've never actually met him in person. I would love to, and I could sit and listen to him tell stories all night long. But I have been following everything he writes. I follow his posts on Chronicle of the Horse, which are always so well-timed and so diplomatic.
Well, tell us about the book. So what do you think of the book? Before we get him on.
Okay. The book is, it's a collection of I don't want to say tips, but it's guidance.
His articles he's written, right?
It's basically, and it's a body of knowledge on not how good riders get good technically, but what makes a successful competitor and horse person. Do you want to be a winning competitor? Do you want to be an effective rider? Do you want to stay on during a hunt? Whatever it is your goal is, however you define success, he outlines it in each chapter. And the chapters go from, deciding what kind of sport is right for you, the difference between choices in your riding career and opportunities. how to create a network of support. So if you are the type of person who has Olympic dreams, you have to know you can't do it by yourself. So these are all words of wisdom from someone who's been there and done that. I guess that's what I would say. These are words of wisdom, and they're practical words. Not like, oh, if you dream it, it'll happen. That's bull. This is actual practical information that you can sit down, you can read, you can chew on it, and then you can put it to practice for you. And
I think that after everybody gets to know Denny a little bit today, they'll understand that he is not the if you dream it, it can happen kind of person. He is the get it done kind of person. You can dream it all day long, but then you got to go out and do something.
Yeah.
So he's that kind of person, and I think
he doesn't sugarcoat any of it.
No.
If you,
I'll have my beeper button ready today.
Why? What's your beeper button?
He doesn't sugarcoat much. No.
He does. And that is so refreshing. I have such a low tolerance for disingenuous people, for BS, for when a politician is asked a question. They say something, but they never really answer the question. They say something, they put words out there, but they're meaningless words. Denny is not about that. And that's
And you know what? If you think about it, here at the Horse Radio Network, we're really not, certainly not me, we're really not about that either. We kind of just say it the way it is, and I think that's what people like.
Well, the truth, BS doesn't help anybody. The truth does. It's not always pretty, but it does help. So I think this book is probably one of the most helpful additions to any horse person's library.
Cool. So out of 5 flakes in a bale, what do you give it? 5
flakes.
Really?
Yeah.
He gets a full bale?
Yeah, I like it. 5 flakes for the content. You know what? I would say 4 5/8 flakes. The only thing that I don't like about this book, in fact, I don't like it, I hate it with a passion, is the font they used for the typeface.
Oh, really?
It's very difficult to read. Yeah.
Oh, and you're a font person. You're a font phobic.
And, I don't wear glasses. I have 20/20 vision.
Well, if you couldn't read it, then certainly I'm not going to be able to read it. Is it just the font type they used? In other words?
It's the typeface, yeah. It's a certain type of serif font. There's several different fonts that are used in the book, so the entire book isn't.
That's weird. Usually in books they don't play with fonts. They use the standard font that everybody's used to, and that's all they do.
Well, it kind of looks like a standard font, but I don't know. Maybe it's just my particular copy, but no, it's pretty difficult for me to read. It made my eyes go googie.
Well, I think the people that published this book Trafalgar Square will probably be listening to this today. So there's your message to them: get a different font.
Not that you can't read it; you just have to read it in like a soft light.
Yeah.
If you find the right lighting, it won't be so bad.
Hey, did you get a Kindle yet?
No, but I was talking to a family member who did, and she loves it.
I know. And, I always thought it'd be a dumb idea. And by the way, the Kindles are down $119 now. And I always thought it would be a dumb idea. Why do you need a Kindle when you can just read it on the computer or on, whatever? But yet everybody that owns one loves it.
Well, it's my aunt who got one for her birthday, and she's totally not a techie. She's lucky if she has a digital watch. And and a big button cell phone. So she still has one of those cell phones that you carry around in a case. So her daughter's got her this Kindle, and she's like a romance novel addict, and she's like downloading her romance novels onto her Kindle like it's going out of style, and she absolutely loves it. So when she said she liked it, I said, well, maybe I'll give it a try, because reading things on the computer is really difficult.
Well, not only that, when you want to sit down and read, you don't want a laptop in your lap, or you, like Jennifer goes outside and reads on the back porch, that kind of thing. Yeah. You just don't want a laptop around, or, it's just a pain.
Well, the human eye responds differently to words on a printed page reading from left to right than they do on a computer screen. This is in my previous career. We did some usability studies on website design, on information design. just how words and pictures are put on a page, and you study the way the human eye follows it. And on a computer, people typically scan vertically from top to bottom, looking for keywords that are of interest to them. And once they find those keywords, their brain then says, okay, you are ready to invest a couple of extra seconds in reading this text from left to right.
Or like me, you're just looking for pretty pictures.
Oh, me too. I'm totally a picture person. So anyway, the point is for the Kindle to have overcome that, your brain's natural tendency to scan vertically on an electronic device is a pretty big deal.
Well, let's do this. Let's get Denny on. I think he's probably waiting for our call about this point. So let's Denny Emerson on the line here, and we can chat with him a little bit about the book, which obviously Helena just hated.
I was drinking water.
I think that's the highest flake rating that we've ever given a book.
4 5/8.
And we're going to take a break before we get Denny on here for a commercial with Equestrian Collections. We appreciate their support of the show, and we'll be back with Denny Emerson. For over a year now, we've been telling you about all the cool things happening at Equestrian Collections and the variety and selection of products they have at fantastic prices. But today, we want to talk to you a little bit about their social networking and what a community they have built on Facebook. If you go to Facebook and search for Equestrian Collections, you're going to find that over 20,000 fans are now following Equestrian Collections on Facebook. And the reason is they have a dynamic community built over there. On most store sites, most company sites on Facebook will just promote product and things like that. That's not what happens on Equestrian Collections. Yeah, there's a little bit of that, but mostly it's the community sharing pictures, talking about stories, asking questions of each other. It's an active, vibrant community, like a little forum right there on Facebook. Search for Equestrian Collections on Facebook or stop over to equestriancollections.com for all of your horse and rider needs.
So, Denny, the subtitle of your book is Daily Choices That Lead to Success in Any Equestrian Sport. And the book actually starts with finding the right riding sport or discipline for you. How does a person go about finding out what that is? I mean, you spent pretty much a whole lifetime riding through different types of sports. How does the average person or the person just starting out, how do they know? How do they do that? How do they get started without spending 60 years doing it?
Well, I think that they don't know ahead of time, presumably, what sport would suit them the best, because I think you either come into a sport, a particular kind of riding sport, because that's what your friends do or your parents do or your family does, or it's something that's available to you, if you're not from a horsey family. And the reason I talk about that is I think that all of us have a different, sort of psychological profile. There are people who are risk takers. There are people who are very, measured and introspective. There are people who are sort of out there. There are people who are very studious. And, to get into a sport that doesn't fit your personality doesn't mean that you can't do well in it, but it means that you're sort of fighting your nature, and you might have to fight it all your life if you are a basically highly introspective, disciplined kind of person, and you find yourself, living in a place where everybody does barrel racing or 3-day eventing, and probably you should be doing something that is more in keeping with your own personality. So it's I don't know the answer to that, other than to sort of look inside yourself and think, is this sport, does it make sense for who I feel like I am?
Right. But you also talk about reading, educating yourself in the horse world, reading everything you can get your hands on, talking to people, finding out about everything there is, not only about the horse, but about the different sports that you can get involved in. So, if you're an adrenaline junkie, maybe a career in dressage might not be the right thing for you.
Exactly, or vice versa.
Yeah.
If you're an adrenaline junkie, or if you're not an adrenaline junkie or not a risk taker, you probably shouldn't do bareback bronc riding.
You think?
Yeah, well, that would come to mind.
So one of the things, I found very interesting was, choices and opportunities. In the book, you describe two different paths taken by two different women, Sally and Andrea, in chapter 3.
And I thought... Yep, go ahead.
I thought that was such a frank, realistic approach to what actually happens in the real world. There's Glenn and I were talking just before you came on about, if you dream it, if you believe it, it can happen. And you know what? That's a lot of BS. There's life that gets in the way. And you chronicle Sally's choices in her life and Andrea's choices in her life. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, the time in your life when you really get hooked on horses, is probably 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, somewhere along in there is when most people get bitten by the bug. And those are also times in your life when you are subjected to external forces all over the place, whether you are going to go to school, whether you're going to go to college, whether you're going to get married young, whether you're going to have children, whether you're going to, it's where you live. You're not dependent upon where you live. Your parents decide where you live because you live in their house when you're a kid. And so it's a very hard thing. You feel like you're in a maelstrom. You're being bounced around all over the place by circumstance. And at some point, I think the people that decided that, like if you read the profiles of the 23 other people in that book, at some point, somewhere in there, late teens, early 20s, most of those people decided that they had a path that they were going to start to take. And I think that most people at that age aren't that introspective yet. They don't really analyze and think about what's going to happen. And I'll bet you the same thing is true.
Denny, I would say that about a lot of 40-year-olds.
Yeah, and it's also true, about, let's say you're going to become a doctor or a lawyer or a veterinarian or a dentist or any of the professions. You have to, at some point, quite young, make that determination, because if you go through college and now you're 26 or 7 and you say, gee, I should have been a doctor, what are the odds that you'll ever go back and redo it all? They're tiny, aren't they? And so I think that the, in my hypothetical example of the girl that got married, didn't take the working student position, didn't want to sell her horse, didn't want to leave her boyfriend, that's fine. That happens to people every day. But 10 years later, it shut the door on her becoming the kind of rider that she might have been. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but if riding had been her top priority, then it wouldn't have been the correct series of choices.
Well, that's a really interesting point, because what we're seeing here, or what you're seeing and you have seen in your career, is that there are these series of forks in the road for each rider.
Yeah.
And the choice you make at those forks obviously determines the route that you take in life. But if riders need to make this decision, their first fork is at a young age.
It can be at a young age.
Who's there to help them? Who's there to help these people, guide them through? That's, I guess, what I'm thinking is we can't, since no man is an island, as you say, what's that 14-year-old, who is she supposed to look to? Her parents, herself? She's obviously not mature enough to make that, because it's a commitment. You have to say, okay, I am now ready to commit to this path. I'm going to take the left-hand fork and I'm going to commit to it. A 14-year-old, like you said, is not introspective enough to do that. Maybe her parents are not horsey. Then she's left with, her trainer, her friends.
Yeah,
is there anybody reliable there that she can count on?
You've got to be very careful, because the people that might advise you to give up all to just become a horse person might not be guiding you in the right direction. I mean, I don't think that there's any basic, I think it's possible to get a decent education and become a good rider. I don't think it has to be or should be one or the other. I think that if a kid has a chance to go to college and get a degree, that doesn't preclude them from becoming a top rider. And I think that if you just say, in other words, I don't trust the person that says, give it all up at age 16 to just go do horses, forget having an education, because that really shuts a lot of doors too. So I think that if somebody, there are plenty of kids that are never going to go past high school, and that's fine. But if it's in the cards that you could theoretically, your parents are supportive, you have the grades, you have the board scores, and you could go to college, why not do both? So I think that you've got to be careful who gives you the advice, because they can shut you out of a lot of opportunities if they say just go be a horse junkie at age 17 instead of going to college. I don't know if that's maybe a long way to answer that, but I think you got to be very, very careful who you listen to.
How much of that, on the same thought, how much of that at the age of in the teens, I'm talking. This could, by the way, this whole conversation could relate to tennis or basketball or anything. Yeah. How much of that is an innate desire in the individual and really has no bearing on the outside world? Like, we've all seen those kids that are so driven, and they're driven naturally. Do you believe in that, or do you think that there's always an outside force, or does a lot of this come from inside?
Oh, I think a ton of it comes from inside.
Okay.
I think that probably that, they call it all kinds of things: hunger, drive, desire, fire in the belly. There's a million terms: obsession, fanaticism, all of that. The drive to get to be very, very good in anything, I think, is very often driven from within. And if you were a clinical psychologist, you might be able to probe into somebody's inner workings enough to figure out where it came from. But a lot of times it's just there. You don't know how it got there. You can have 10 kids in a family. One of them has the drive to go on and be whatever. The other 9 are just nice people, or to go to prison.
And to take that further, and you've worked with so many people over your lifetime, and Helene and I have too. And one of the things that you see, and we used to own an acting company, and we used to see this. That's how I can correlate it. We did, shows for 10 years with this acting company. We had a lot of actors come and go. And it's the same way we were just talking about. You have that person that has that innate drive that's just going to let it all out, put all inhibitions down, and go for it. And then you have that person that has so much talent and probably has the drive, but they can't get past the wall that they've put up, that barrier that they put in place. We saw it all the time in acting. They just could not let all out and be as good as they could be. That has to be the most frustrating student you have.
Yeah, it's like that Calvin Coolidge quote. I don't know if you can find it in there. It's about talent is not enough. The world is full of talented derelicts. Genius is not enough. All these different things are not enough. Persistence alone is omnipotent, or something like that. In other words, the willingness to just slog it out day after day after day to go for it, to just get down and go for it. And so it's a tricky combination of things. It's partly it's partly parents, it's partly peer pressure, it's partly your coaches, it's partly your the books you read, the influences that you had, the movies you may have watched. There's so many pieces that sort of all kind of coalesce to create that person. I've got a friend here, a guy named Bob Morgan, who's involved in theater, and he creates costumes, for period costumes. He said that he had a very interesting thought, that an idea. He said, he had read this, and he said acting schools produce very often A-list and B-list kind of kids. And a lot of times the A-list guys, the ones with the towering talent, get agents. And the agents sort of wait around for them to get the plum parts the B-list guys and girls go to some city like Cleveland, and take any darned acting job they can get. And 10 years later, the B-list people have been out there night after night doing all kinds of stuff, Shakespeare, every kind of theatrical opportunity that came along, and suddenly they are much better and more successful than the A-list people that didn't get their 10,000 hours.
And that's true of riding. I mean,
that's true of riding.
Yeah.
You've got to get your butt in those saddles.
And ride everything and anything you can.
And if you read the 23 other people, the riders and drivers, most of them say the same thing.
Yeah.
Ride, get on horses. It's like Ted Williams, that thing about him. Did you read that part, Helene, about where the guy goes down from Boston down to spring training?
Yes.
And who's out there after everybody else has gone home for the day, taking batting practice? The last guy in baseball to hit over 400, Ted Williams. So theoretically, the guy that needed it the least was practicing the most.
Yeah. That's your persistence, and persistence
drive,
and every time that drive is the foundation of everything else. So when you say educate yourself, add that body of knowledge, every back you sit on is another lesson learned. You're learning something from every different animal.
Example. I mean, when you write a book, you have a certain vested interest in that it does well. And one of the things that I find slightly ironic is this. Thousands and thousands of people in the United States take lessons all the time, right? And they'll spend anywhere from, $35, $40, $50, $60, $70, up to $125 for a lesson.
Yeah.
And everybody that takes a lesson is taking a lesson theoretically because they want to get good, or they want to get better at least. Wouldn't you say that?
Yeah, well,
absolutely.
Yep, you would
hope. Myself included.
So now here's a book called How Good Riders Get Good that's basically by 25 people, Sandra Cook, my editor, and me, and the other 23 people and it's an analysis of how dozens and dozens of people went through dozens and dozens of processes to become good. And so one would theoretically think that they would pick up this book for $30 and say, okay, now here's like a blueprint. And I could take my magic marker, my yellow underliner, and go through there and say, where am I compared to these people? What did they do that I'm not doing? What have I done that they didn't do, right? They would study it with some degree of intellectual curiosity. But most people will never buy that book. And yet they, at the same time, which is like a roadmap, and yet at the same time they're trying to get to be better riders or good riders. So what is it? Is it an anti-intellectualism? What is it that prevents people from taking a tool and using it? I mean, I don't say that in huge frustration, but as an author, you think that a little bit.
Well, I think one of the things is there's I don't want to say confusion, but what defines good? I mean, that's the big question. Maybe we should back up and say, how good riders get good. Well, what does good mean to you? Good could mean an Olympic gold medal. Good can mean just staying on. Good can mean being relaxed when you go out for a trail ride. So there are different definitions of success, different definitions of good. I think your book addresses the traditional definition of success, which is competitive success. So, I was able to take the advice that you have in this book and say, it's life lessons that you're teaching here. This isn't just about how to be a technically good rider. This is how to achieve what you want to achieve. But you first need to define that, don't you?
Yeah.
What do I want to achieve here?
Yeah, and I think that another thing that people perhaps don't understand sufficiently is that if you are able to create a support network, anything you try to do is more likely to become possible, And to use that example of Mr. Boyden, at the headmaster of Deerfield Academy, who took over a failing school of 12 kids, when he was 20 years old, and when he's 21 or 2, just graduated from Emerson, 66 years later, he's built it into one of the most prestigious, secondary schools in the world through the power of his ability to make people want to help him. And I think that, you take so many of the young kids in riding or the young professionals, they don't understand the process of creating a support matrix, and if they did, they would have a much easier time because they would have allies in their quest.
That's a good point. I remember, I didn't start my riding career until I was pretty much an adult. And, you start out with one trainer and you kind of think that's the only thing there is riding around in circles on the lunge, maybe doing dressage. And then you accidentally or some other way stumble upon something different. And you say, oh, wow, this is good too. And now your education expands a little bit. And so with each different person you learn from and each different experience that you have, you start to look back on this collection and say, oh, God, I lost my train of thought. Oh, this was a good one, too. Gosh darn it. You look back and you say, I have, I learned a little bit from this person and a little bit from that person. And each thing I've learned is valuable, but it's, when you put it all together, when you create a network of your of your experiences, that's what makes you good. Like, I would be half the rider I am had I not had that one instructor who liked to yell, who liked to scream and drive me a little bit harder. But then there was another trainer who was softer and gentler and really appealed to my spiritual side when riding, or slowed me down, that really soft, gentle person who helped me be a soft, gentle rider. I combining that my intensity with this softness and this gentleness has put me in a place in the saddle that is really good for me. But I needed to have those two different people in my life in order to achieve it.
I know that was the same with me. I had Jack Legoff, who was a yeller and a screamer and a high-intensity person, and then Walter Christensen, who was a much more analytical, quiet, introspective, gentle person. And each one of them probably came at the right time in my career, but one without the other wouldn't have been as good as the combination of them. And I think that one of the things that I try to point out here, because I've come to realize this more and more, is that when I talk about a quiver full of arrows, that as the analogy that like if you're an archer and you reach back over your shoulder to pull out an arrow out of your quiver, it needs to be there, those arrows could be physical skills. They could be emotional qualities. They could be, all kinds of different qualities and skills that together create your ability to become a good rider. It doesn't do any good to have a agile body if you're trying to do dressage with an aggressive, angry personality. You've got to have a calm, measured, patient personality to go with your physical skills. So it's a combination of arrows in your quiver, not just physical thing. And it's going to be knowledge. I think it's knowledge. It's a person is a compendium of what they know, what they are physically, and what they are in terms of their character and their emotions. And you can shortchange yourself on any one of those three areas. You can be very, very, you can be you can know a ton and still be an angry person on a horse, or you can be a soft, quiet rider on a horse and very good athlete, but not know anything because you've never studied or had lessons or read books, and so you're limited in what you can achieve. So the really good rider is going to hone her skills in all these different areas is what I think. And I think a lot of people won't start to do that until they realize that they need to do that. And I think a book like this helps them understand the need to do it.
Absolutely. I mean, this book is your hindsight, and you're giving your readers the benefit of that.
Yeah, I'm going to be 70 in August, and I could not have written this book when I was 50, because I was too close to it. I think I had to get older to be able to be reflective enough to think, you know what? There's so many ways that you've got to, and when you're in the thick of something, you tend to just drill along, at whatever it is you're doing without perhaps stopping back to analyze and to think, what can I do differently? How do I need to approach this differently? What are the different things that I need to acquire in order to do it?
Boy, and I'll tell you what, Denny, there's a lot of those things I'd rather not think about in hindsight either, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I'm sure we all have those too. We need to take a break here for a commercial, and we're going to be right back. And then I want to talk to you a little bit about a statement that you have, horse buyers are liars. Let's talk a little bit about that, because we have a wide audience here for this show, and tens of thousands from around the world, and some of those people are going to buy a horse right now. So let's talk a little bit about that when we get back. Regular listeners to the Stable Scoop Show know that Helena and I just love Uncle Jimmy's and his fantastic line of products. His products have the highest quality ingredients, and that is why they have taken off like they have. Of course, it all started with Uncle Jimmy's hanging balls for use in the stalls, and then came squeezy buns. We know you need to reward your horse outside of the stall as well. That is why Uncle Jimmy developed Uncle Jimmy's Squeezy Buns. Squeezy Buns are all natural and loaded with nutritional ingredients for your horse. Unlike similar products on the market, they are individually wrapped to preserve freshness and eliminate mess. With competitive pricing and Uncle Jimmy's quality guarantee, the Squeezy Buns promise to be a hit among horses and horse lovers alike. Learn more about all of Uncle Jimmy's products or to find a dealer, visit uncle-jimmys.com. That's uncle-jimmys.com. Well, we're back. You're listening to the Stable Scoop Radio Show. We have a special guest, Denny Emerson, on here today, and we're having a more serious conversation than what Helena and I usually do. But it's so important and so much fun when we have a guy like Denny on. But I think you two have something in common, you and Helena, and that is, I bet you Denny at one time rode in the myopia hunt once or twice too, because where he used to ride for the United States Equestrian Team was right beside there.
I actually passed the master.
Ah!
You know what? We really do have something in common.
Yeah, I was riding a horse called Cat. My first advanced horse was like in 1971, and I went flying right past. I think it was Mrs. What was that lady's name?
Mrs. Eyre?
No, it was
Was she before your time?
master. It was the field master. It was not good.
Did they send the hounds after you, Denny?
Yeah.
I was one time riding the
Ellis,
Masters.
Betty Ellis. I passed.
Oh, okay.
Betty Ellis.
Yep. Oh boy.
Is she in relation to the Ellises that are
kidding.
still there?
Yeah, they're all related.
Oh.
They breed more field hunters, human field hunters. I was riding once the Masters, semi-retired 18-hand, or he was like 17-2, he was just a brute of a thing. And we went flying by the Master one day, and I said, "I'm really sorry, but this horse is ready to go. He's used to being in the front." And thank God everybody was understanding. But sometimes you're out there, you have to go with the flow. You got to be ready to break some rules.
Yep.
Especially in Hamilton.
So, Denny, why do you say horse buyers are liars?
I think that the horse world basically is built upon emotional, fuzzy thinking, a lot of it. I mean, when you think about how you come on as a kid, what do you read? You read The Black Stallion, right?
Yeah.
The Black Stallion is now here you've got how old was Alec Ramsey? He was like 13 or 14 years old, right? This little tiny teenage, freshman in high school who masters this wild stallion and then goes out and wins these races. And you have 1,001 stories just like that. Little children performing miracles with wild horses,
Yep.
So we have this fuzzy, unrealistic, dream world way of thinking about horses that is sort of drilled into our consciousness. I talk about the fact that, you get up in the morning on Saturday morning and little kids are sitting in front of the television set watching little talking animals, playing and doing things, and the whole Walt Disney World is created on the assumption that animals are just like us, except they look different. And so now you're out looking for a horse, and you are, if you were really analytical, if you were a real thinker instead of a dream thinker, you would look at yourself and you would say, okay, I am this. I am at this skill level. I am at this confidence level. I am at this whatever level. And I need to augment this to reinforce where I'm trying to get. I need a horse that's like this. I am say, a 4 rider, and I need a 4 horse that will sort of quietly go along and do what I need to do until I'm a 5 rider or a 6 rider or a 7 rider or a Bruce Davidson or an 8 rider, But you don't do that because you go to buy the 15-year-old, 15 two-hand, plain-looking quarter horse gelding, and galloping around in the pasture is a horse, a beautiful gray thoroughbred 4-year-old mare that just came off the racetrack, that goes floating along, and you picture yourself galloping around across the finish line at Rolex in 3 years, 4 years on this gray ghost, right? Don't you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you do. Only it's not a gray ghost. It's a Bay Arab cross.
Whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
And your jets start to rev, and you picture yourself doing these amazing things. So which one do you buy?
Mm-hmm. The bells and whistles.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah. So now you've got this 4-year-old in the paddock. You can't catch her, and when you do catch her, when you saddle her up, she's winging all over the place. You go to get on, and what does she do? As you put one foot over from the mounting block, she runs sideways. You land on your head, thump, crash. Or you do get on, and she runs off with you, and you're scared, and you're terrified, and your hands clutch, and her head comes up in your face, and you're creating a worse monster than she already is because she's so much way more horse than you should have bought. It happens all the time. Mm-hmm. And it discourages people from getting better. It scares them. It scares the horse, but it's, and that's why I say buyers aren't always liars, but buyers have a tendency to not really analyze what they need to buy.
Well, that's tricky. I mean, how do you know what you want? And how do you know the difference between what you want and that it's not good for you to ride?
Well, and let's face it, emotion gets in the way. And how many times have we gone out horse shopping, but I fell in love with the horse after 2 minutes? By the way, those are the same girls that are falling in love with the bad boys, too. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I wasn't a bad boy kind of girl.
No, but you don't. You know the line from My Fair Lady? This is one of the best lines ever written. They will ask you for advice. Your reply will be concise. They will listen very nicely, then go out and do precisely what they like.
That's true.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So if somebody comes to you, Helena or Glenn, and some friend of yours, some say 17-year-old friend, that's a sort of a novice level event rider, and says, what kind of horse should I buy? And you bring out your big brother, big sister, serious, mean, and you say you need, and you just tell her exactly what she needs. And then what is she going to go buy? She might take your advice, but she might just do what she wants. And that's really tricky, and it probably drives more people away from horses that could have been good than almost any other single thing, is buying the wrong horse or getting stuck with horses that scare them and that they can't ride. And that
you think someone else should tell you what to buy? Like I would like to rely on someone, like Glenn's wife has been a mentor for me, and I would trust. And she's seen me ride extensively. So if she said to me, Helena, this is the kind of horse that you need, I would be inclined now, after I've made a big mistake, I'd be inclined to really follow her advice. But, does that mean everybody needs someone else to tell them what? I mean, I think I'm a pretty introspective kind of person, and I clearly made a mistake.
Well, everybody makes mistakes all the time, but the hardest thing is, have you ever noticed this phenomenon? The minute you own a horse, right, you invest that horse with all your hopes and dreams, right? The moment you buy it, and it'll take, to pry you loose from your mistake is one of the hardest things there is.
Oh, God. Yes.
You're speaking right to Helene at this very moment as she's sitting there in her knee brace.
Especially if you're competitive, because it's these are one of the characteristics I think that does help make a good rider good is you're competitive, you're persistent.
Yep.
Challenges and obstacles don't dissuade you. They just encourage you to try harder. That is a very hard thing to let go of. And, that combined with the fact that no man is an island, and you really do need help. You need support from other people. You can't go out shopping alone. Like, what would you say to somebody who wants to be a successful training level eventer? I want to go out and get a horse. What am I looking for?
Well, there's a big difference between a very cocky, gutsy, agile, lacrosse, soccer playing 17-year-old girl and her 17, 27, 37, 42-year-old unfit mother, right? There can be.
Yep.
Right.
And so I would say the 17-year-old, who plays soccer and field hockey and lacrosse and is a cocky, tough, brave kid, yeah, sure, be a little out there, But for the older adult who, doesn't want to get hurt, has lost a lot of her fitness, has a desk job, doesn't run and lift weights and do all those things, the same horse that her daughter could ride might terrify and hurt her. Or it could be the other way around. The mother could be the tough cookie, and the kid needs the quiet horse. So you have to kind of analyze the person.
But who's responsible for doing that? Like, should you? Because if you know that,
don't you think the older person should?
I do, but doesn't that older person need like a trainer who knows them well?
Yeah, I mean, ideally.
So it means you need to find a trainer and be with one long enough and consistently enough that they know you very well, and then can make a recommendation. I mean, sometimes. It's I know people who bounce around from trainer to trainer because they either can't find a good fit or, trainers up and leave, businesses close down, priorities change. It's hard to find somebody who really knows how you ride. How quickly can a trainer assess you? Does it take a week? Does it take a year?
They can tell
enough to make a recommendation on what you should buy.
One of the things I talk about in the book, I spend a lot of time on it, and I'll bet you it's the same thing. You know how when somebody smokes and they walk by and there's a big anti-smoking ad, they take a puff and they look the other way and they walk right by it.
Right.
Right? Because they're going to keep smoking, right? So they're not going to listen to all the warnings. I make a big issue in that book about the thing Jack Ladoff said, about what was the 3 things you have to have in order to be a good rider. What did he say? 1, you have to have a good seat. 2, you have to have a good seat. 3, you have to have a good seat, right? Right? In other words, if you aren't part of the moving, breathing, living horse, if your body can't absorb all the concussive effects that the horse's moving body creates, you're not as good a rider as the people who can, right?
Yeah.
You can't. So if I have somebody come to my place and I walk and trot and canter and I say, okay, can you drop your stirrups and walk, trot, and canter? And they cross their stirrups and they walk, trot, and canter, and they're just the same as if they had their stirrups. What do I know? They're a good rider.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
They're like the little Indian kid that I talk about in the book.
Right.
They grew up galloping around on a pony, right? They're part of the horse. Now,
well, wait a minute. Let me stop you right there. This is a very, very, very important point. So, are you saying that a baseline for a good rider is someone who can walk, trot, and canter without stirrups as well as they can with stirrups?
If you can't get on a horse bareback and walk, trot, and canter, you are not as good a rider as the person who can.
Okay.
Because you aren't able, your body isn't attuned to leveling out, to nullifying the concussive effects of the movement of that horse. I mean, like I say, I'm about to be turned 70. I could get on a horse today, 2 broken hips later, and I could, if it was a nice quiet horse, right? I could get on a horse and I could walk, trot, and canter bareback, and I could probably jump little fences bareback. Right, at 70, right? I could
show
still
off.
do this, right? Right?
Yep.
Yes.
Because I'm fit and I'm agile, and I learned a long, long time ago, 60 years ago, how to ride without a saddle. So if you can't do that, in other words, I'm a coach, right? And I say, okay, sit the trot, and they boinga, boinga, wham, slam, bang, they're bouncing all over the place. What do I know? They have not, Jack Legoff would look at them and say, by the standards by which I was trained at Saumur, riding, the French National Riding Academy, you are not a good rider because you do not have an independent seat. You can't have quiet hands when your body is being pummeled by the motion of the horse. Now, sure, you can post it.
By the way, that was the polite way Jack would have said it.
He would have said, there's nothing wrong with that horse except the abscess on his back.
Yeah, you suck.
Right. No, but I mean...
That's great.
That's the damn, excuse the pun, bottom line.
Yep.
Can you sit?
Yeah.
Right? Are you part of the motion? And if you're not, then go become that.
Right.
You can do it. All you have to do is practice. Right?
That's right.
Don't just look the other way and pretend that part of the book isn't there.
I knew this interview was going to kill me because it's making me want to get out and ride. I knew it. I knew it, Glenn.
You can not be fit and ride. I mean, the world is full of not fit people.
Yeah.
The big problem is people have there's 2 F-T words, right? And one of them makes people crazy. That's the FAT word. The other word is FIT. I don't care if somebody's fat as long as they're fit.
Fit, yeah.
They can be skinny and unfit. They need to get fit. If you're going to be a rider, is an athlete.
By the way, I saw Denny at Rolex. He's still pretty fit. What he said there is true.
Yeah, I am. I'm eventing. I just, a couple of weeks ago, I rode prelim at Hitching Post. It was my 50th consecutive year going prelim.
Oh, wow.
In eventing.
Congratulations.
50 years
70.
in a row, and that's because I've stayed fit, and I've been lucky. I haven't gotten hurt too badly. I haven't gotten, cancer or whatever.
Right.
I mean,
right.
I'm not saying it's part of it's luck, but part of it is I've stayed in the game, but so I don't have a whole lot of sympathy for people that just aren't willing to make themselves into better athletes. They want to be good riders, but see, that's dream thinking. You're not willing to make yourself into a better athlete, but you want to go out and go prelim.
Right.
I would say become a good athlete, and then prelim should be a breeze.
Well, we have to wrap it here because we've plain run out of time. This has been so fascinating, and we could talk to you all day about a million different topics. But that's partly why you did the book, and we highly encourage people to get the book. It's How Good Riders Get Good by Denny Emerson, and you can find it a number of places. We'll put a link on our show notes and Facebook also to it. And, it's well worth the money. It's worth taking a look at. It got a 4 7/8 flakes out of 5 from Helena. So that's about as good as we've seen here yet. The only reason she didn't give it a 5 out of 5, Denny, is she found the font annoying. She thought the font was hard to read. So,
okay. Well, I didn't have anything.
No, you didn't have anything to do that.
No, we made that very clear.
Yeah,
I think it is such a great book. I think it makes a great gift, and I think whether you're 17 or 70, there's something to be learned because you have lived several lifetimes worth of experience, and it's all in this book. So,
well, thanks for having me on your show. I always like it.
Will you come back again sometime?
I will.
Right.
Just let me know.
All right.
Hey, are you still running that eventing camp for grown-ups at your farm?
I am.
All right. Well, I hope to see you up there someday soon.
Okay. Well, thanks, guys.
All right. Thanks, Denny.
Thank you.
Well, that was fun, huh?
oh God,
I could ask him 1,000 more questions. I know you could too. I know you were just
I was
itching.
struggling. I mean, thank you to our listeners for following along with that hot mess of an interview, because now I have a list of questions that I wanted to ask Denny, but as Glenn can tell you, every time we get a really big interview on this show, I don't know what to do with myself. Dude, and Denny in particular is he has so much experience. I mean, he says he's 70 years old, but that's young. And he has, like I said, a gazillion lifetimes packed into that 70 years. Where do you start? What questions do you start with a man like that?
Yeah, and he's lived through the old days of eventing where they did it the hard way. And, where training was not what it was today. He started when things were down and dirty, and it was a hard road when he was doing eventing. In the days of Ledyard, which is right up by the hunt club he used to hunt at, where they were hunting at Ledyard, the first eventing field actually in the United States. The first cross-country course was at Ledyard. Yeah, and those. We
got to post that video of Ledyard. I think it's 1972 or 77.
Yeah,
I have a link somewhere. I put it up on Chronicle.
Denny might even be in that video.
I think he might be, but we need to find that and post it.
Yeah,
and then we need to have him back on, because I want to have a conversation with him about how, if it's even possible, to somehow return to that level of quality of riding.
Okay,
because
gotcha. And he'll have something to say about that.
Yeah, how good riders get good. Well, let's redefine what good is, and where can we? I think that should be Denny's legacy. Is what do we need to do? What does the next generation need to do in order for us to be good, really good, like they were in the old days?
Yep. And he is he is one of the legends of the sport of eventing, no question.
For goodness sakes, he's 70 years old and he's still riding prelim.
I know, and he's a legend already. I mean, so there you go. There you go.
I hope just to be able to get on when I'm 70. Hey, I hope to get on when I'm 43.
By the way, he's in damn good shape, and he was running all over Rolex like a crazy nut. I think he lost the cross-country course about 3 times. So, he is in very good shape. Well, that's Denny Emerson. You can find the book. We'll put links to it in our show notes. We do have to wrap up here today. Don't forget to listen to the morning show, Horses in the Morning, 9 a.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday, and listen to Tack and Habit. We talked this week. Go over to check out tackandhabit.com. We talked this week about not perky jerky.
Oh, boy.
But
jockey
jerky. I made Helena jealous because I was eating it while we were talking. Jockey jerky. Find out what jockey jerky is over on Tack and Habit Show.
We need Horse Radio Network jerky.
And also on Tack and Habit, you can find out why Helena is so darn happy this week, because she's got a new toy to play with. And you'll find out what that is on tackandhabit.com.
For details about today's show, go to stablescoop.com. You'll find links, photos, and more information about Denny Emerson. And we love your feedback, so log on to Facebook and like us. You can find us at Stable Scoop. We also tweet every once in a while, and you can find us on Twitter at Horse Radio. And, of course, you're always welcome to leave us feedback at stablescoop.com/contact.
All right, that's it, everybody. Oh, you know what? The cool new closing's not on the bottom.
Oh,
well,
right.
Say goodbye, Helena.
All right. Goodbye, Glenn. Thanks, everybody, for listening. We'll see you next week.